right. Hi, guys. We are back today to talk about the current trends that we are seeing with regards to F-1 cancellations. So, with me is Dobrina, my esteemed colleague. I'll be asking questions, she'll be responding, and we'll just kind of give some tips and talk about how they may or may not be overcome. So, hi, Dobrina.
Hi.
So recently we've been getting inundated with calls about F-1 visa cancellations, CVIS issues. Tell me some of the reasons behind these cancellations that you're seeing.
Right. So, I mean, based on the calls that we are getting and talking to universities and international students, it looks like there are three buckets. So, the first bucket is revocations based on some sort of criminal issues, criminal records, criminal activities, where people have cases either that they have been dismissed, expunged, or something is going on. So that's the first bucket. It sounds like that's the bigger bucket.
Right.
And these are things like maybe you had a DUI and case was dismissed in 2020 or something else. I heard also speeding tickets. Some people are getting their statuses revoked for speeding tickets.
Yeah.
Now, one thing is a lot of people or international students think that, well, my record was expunged. So unfortunately, for immigration purposes, your record is never expunged.
Right.
Yes, it is expunged for, if you, let's say, if you apply for a job or, if you rent an apartment and then they run your background check, yeah, perhaps it is expunged for that. But when it comes to immigration, you always have a record. Whether it's, you're applying for a visa, whether you're applying for a green card, whether you're applying for US citizenship. Yep. So that record is always there. It never disappears. So that's the first bucket. Basically, people with some infractions in the past, just now they're getting their civises revoked. Yeah. A second bucket is the people involved in the protests a few months ago.
First Amendment rights.
First Amendment issues. So, and those are the pro-Palestinian protests. So whether, you were protesting, whether you were organizing, but somehow you were involved in that. So that's the second bucket. And the third bucket, which is the most concerning, at least for me, is you had absolutely nothing in your record, you didn't protest, and there's no reason for your civils to get revoked.
Right.
So these are the three buckets that, at least I saw based on calls and talking to universities and people last week.
Yeah. In addition to that, right, also too, you have to start considering previous visa applications, right? One of the things that we've seen too is B1, B2s cancellations in the past or abuse of the same. So let's say you were previously in the country on a B1, B2 and you overstayed or you worked or, absent crime and you subsequently left and your visa was revoked, right?
Right.
So we're also, and then of course now you're here on an F1, and so it's kind of clawing back, right? It's like they're reaching back and trying to dig up every immigration history that you have. But as Dobrina mentioned, the most common we're seeing are we have the criminal records, we have the protests, and then we also have the cancellations for no reason.
For no reason, yeah. And those are the most, not that the other ones are not concerning, but obviously, if you've done nothing, if you don't have any record, if you didn't protest, you have no prior visa violations, and then you wake up and, you have an email from DHS saying, sorry, you're, actually, they don't even say sorry. No. It's like basically your status is revoked. That is really concerning at that point, because you don't know what to do, what to think, how to approach, and what is your option.
And that's why we're seeing these students panicking, right? It's time to take finals. Some of them are graduating. So it's a very tough situation that they're in. So for example, Dobrina, with all these calls we're getting, if we had a student who called in today with one of these buckets, right? For example, let's tear them apart. If we had a student who called in today with a bucket, say with the first bucket, which is, oh, well, I had a speeding ticket. Or we had a client who said, well, I did protest. I did just walk in the rally. Or we have a student who calls and says, I don't have a crime. I never protested. I just woke up and it's canceled. What do we recommend that they do?
Right. The recommendation would be based on basically your evidence, what we're dealing with, right?
Right.
So obviously, if the first immediate thing is, okay, we can do reinstatement, right? That's what everybody's doing for the most part.
Right.
Some universities are helping with that, so you don't really need an attorney for that, and the university will do that for you. So that's the first thing, the immediate thing to do, because once you file for that reinstatement, then technically, you should be okay in terms of ICE not picking you up, because you have to get the decision for that reinstatement first. So you're kind of safe on that end. Now, but is the reinstatement gonna work? We don't know. So obviously, if you have a clean record, that's a better case for reinstatement. You have no crimes, you have no violations, and then you file for reinstatement. So that's one option, I guess. That's the immediate sort of reaction to it. Now, the other option, and we see that some students are taking, but you kind of have to be very careful. You have to know the facts, the evidence that you have, is basically to sue the government. So you file a lawsuit against DHS. Technically, that's what that is. Do you want to do that? So obviously, if you have a criminal record, I won't recommend doing that. I mean, I wouldn't do that case. Now, on the flip side, let's say you're a PhD researcher, you're a PhD student, you work on the next cancer treatment, whatever drug or research, and suddenly, your service is revoked. Well, you're a sympathetic plaintiff. So that perhaps you're a candidate for a lawsuit. I mean, you're the plaintiff suing the US government. So, these things, you kind of have to take into consideration. And obviously, filing a lawsuit, that's the more expensive route. But, it's faster because, you can request emergency hearing. And obviously, you can get the result much faster than filing for reinstatement. So basically, what I'm trying to say is your course of action depends on your situation and the type of evidence you have and we have to deal with.
Yeah, of course. And so in line with that, right, what if the university doesn't help with reinstatement?
So if your university doesn't help, they say, okay, we're going to provide the I-20, but, we don't have the capacity or the knowledge base or the person to basically, file for your reinstatement. We don't do that. It's best to, talk to an attorney so that they can review your case and see if reinstatement makes sense, right? Now, if your university, some universities say, well, we are not going to provide an I-20 and basically you're on your own. So technically you have to find another university for where you have to get enrolled, and then they will issue that that I-20, and then you can potentially file for that reinstatement. One thing to remember is though, the second that status is revoked, ICE can pick you up. Technically, you're deportable, right? So that's the scary part. So that's what you have to think about in terms of, when should I file for reinstatement? Can I wait, a week? Can I wait a month? Can I wait 5 months? Because the issue with that is once the status is revoked, they have your record. I mean, they know that your status is revoked. So it's not that it's going to take them time to find out that, your status is revoked. I mean, they get those notifications. So a lot to consider, basically. Also, the thing is, I mean, this is a developing situation. We haven't really seen that in the past, especially with international students. I have seen it with, H-1B revocations based on, criminal infractions. This is not new, for H-1Bs, but it is quite a new development for F-1s, and especially the bucket that has, no reason for revocation. So that's
and that's the thing, right? Like, it's like, okay, at first the thought was, well, they have a criminal record, right? There's a violation somewhere. But after probing some of these fact patterns, some of these people affected, the students affected, they have a clean record. And also too, there's the issue, the trend we're seeing, that even if the reinstatement is granted, there's a chance it could be clawed back, right? So these are actively evolving situations. So what would you advise? Let's say we had F-1 students listening, H-1B visa holders. Let's say they're listening. What would you technically advise? They don't have any criminal records, no revocations yet. What would you advise they do? What precautionary measures should they take to try to prevent this from happening to them?
I think, we have to go back to basics. So don't violate your status. Don't work without authorization. If you decide to party, take an Uber. or lift.
Yes.
If you feel that what you do is wrong, or you have that gut that, okay, should I do it? Should I not? Probably you shouldn't.
Right.
This is, the very basic, back to basics, basically. So, and then, talk to your university as well, to the International Student Center, engage with them, see if they have any other guidance within the university policy, follow those. So it's not time to experiment right now. As I said, you can still party, but always have a backup plan, because it's really, really easy, especially right now, to jeopardize your status. Obviously, go to your classes, don't fall out of, your F-1. Again, don't work without authorization. If you're not sure whether that work will be considered work without authorization, again, talk to your DSO, talk to an attorney, and then make an informed decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Just caution, caution. These are different times, right? More stricter rules apply, and heavy scrutiny is utilized in assessing all these cases. So if you have any questions, or you would like to consult with an attorney regarding your particular status, feel free to reach out to us at www.sciencefirm.com, and we'd be happy to help you.
Oh, and one more thing. Sorry. I just there's so much going on. Social media. So, be aware of what you're posting on social media. I'm not saying, don't post your lunch or dinner or whatever it is that you're eating nowadays. But, like if it's I don't even know how you define a controversial post, but be aware. If you feel like, okay, should I post? Should I not? Probably you shouldn't. Since now formally DHS or USCIS, they have announced that they will heavily scrutinize social media while you're applying for a visa, applying for change of status, applying for a green card, applying for a U.S. citizenship. And even now, even if your civis is revoked, and then you get detained or whatever, they will look at your phone as well, or your social media, and you don't want to have anything that will trigger further actions. So be very careful with social media.
Very careful. Be very careful. So thank you, Dobrina, for that information. I know that we've been very busy with this call. So for those of you watching, if you fall in any of these categories, or you have concerns and would like to speak to an attorney, we would be happy to help you. Feel free to reach out to us at www.sciencesgarcialawfirm.com. And until next time, stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.